Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Monday Q&As. So let's knock it out. First question. Jason, why can't I progress on 5x5 bench press anymore? I stall every time I hit 77.5 kilograms, even after 5+ resets, and eventually an entire cut of 20 pounds. I stalled there at 170 pounds body weight, and again at 150 after my cut. Since bulking again, I reached the same weight and stalled. What is going on? I'm assuming you're running my 5x5 because you're talking about the resets there, so you're running mine and not a different one. The issue is that you did a cut. And in fact, if you're 20 pounds lighter and you've stalled at the same weight, you've progressed, because you need to remember that strength is in proportion to your body weight and upper body lifts, and in particular the bench press. We've got lots of data on this showing that out of the big 3 power lifts, the bench press is most affected by the lifter's body weight. So the fact that if you've lost 20 pounds and you've plateaued again at the same weight you were doing 20 pounds heavier, we would actually consider that to be an improvement. Normally, to see good progress on a bench press at a certain threshold, you almost have to gain weight for the bench press to go up. So that's actually progress, and I think what you're going to find when you bulk back up to 170 and you're getting enough food in and you've regained muscle, as your weight starts going up, you'll notice that the weight on the bar will start going up again on the bench press. Just keep following the program through as needed, but remember, you did a cut. So you not only did a cut, but you did a cut after you've been training a decent while, because you didn't start anywhere near that weight. That means you've been running this program a minimum of 6 months, maybe longer. So you're getting closer to the end of that novice phase. So if you did a cut there, you're going to expect to stall on your bench press until you regain the body weight. Unless you were obese, and if you were 170 and you cut to 150, you weren't obese. So therein lies your explanation. Had you cut when you were obese, that might not have happened, but you cut to a fairly lean body weight. All right, next question. Chang has an advertisement stating that 3 foods that kill testosterone. One of them happens to be cow milk. He actually showed a clip of his study showing that cow milk contains a bunch of estrogens. What is your take, good sir? All right, when people start talking about foods lowering testosterone levels, this is nonsense. Dietary deficiencies can lower testosterone levels. Yes, we know that. Studies on a lot of the phytoestrogens and things that people worry about, turns out they don't lower testosterone. We thought they might, but there were conflicting studies years ago. It turns out most of them really don't. And as far as estrogens in the milk go, estrogen itself, if you're getting it into your bloodstream somehow, you're getting enough of it from the milk for it to elevate your blood serum levels of estradiol, it isn't going to lower your testosterone levels. People need to remember that estrogen itself is slightly anabolic, particularly when combined with testosterone. And since the estrogen will not actually lower your testosterone, when we talk about estrogen lowering testosterone in the human body, we mean that some of your testosterone is converted to estrogen by the aromatase enzyme. In this case, you're just adding extra estrogen in that shouldn't in any way suppress your natural testosterone production. So you shouldn't see any reduction in gains. Could you, in theory, get some negative estrogenic side effects? Yes, but it's not going to lower your gains, and it's not going to lower your testosterone. So when people talk about foods causing this, no, it could be lack of foods that cause you to have lower testosterone levels from too large of a calorie deficit or a vitamin or mineral deficiency, but not from eating these specific foods. No, it's just simply not true, although he might be right, and there is some data suggesting that he would be right as far as it raising estrogen levels potentially by consuming milk because of all the hormones they put in it. All right, next question. How to keep ass from lifting off the seat in bench press only happens when fatigue sets in, though. You're not setting up tight enough, and you're not using the mental cues on all your lighter sets to where you dig your heels in and dig your glutes into the bench hard, and you seat yourself hard, because if you seat yourself hard enough into the bench with your glutes on the bench, it's not going to raise. And the thing is, if you're doing it on your heaviest sets, I can promise you you're probably doing it on your lighter sets to some extent also. You just don't realize it because it's not as pronounced. So you are still doing it, you're just not aware that you're only lifting it a ½ inch off there. You need to just get yourself seated in harder into the bench, get your butt set tight, get your traps set tight, and learn to adjust your heel drive or your leg drive in such a manner that you're not pushing your butt off the bench. It's mainly going to be a setup issue of you not being tight enough in the way that you set yourself up on your lower body when you do the setup on your bench press. And you're only seeing it become more pronounced on the really, really heavy sets. All right, next question. Do you still experiment with peptides? Has your opinion on them changed at all? I've made my opinion pretty clear on a lot of the peptides in the past. Keep in mind, peptides are a wide variety of things. They're legal in most countries. No, my opinion hasn't changed. I think that all the GHRPs for someone like me are simply unusable because of their effect on appetite. It is simply too hard for me to eat only 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day when using these sort of peptides. So I will tend to gain fat even if they are slightly fat burning. I tend to gain fat on them because I struggle so much with the massive appetite that they cause. So I can see them useful for someone who struggles with appetite, who wants to bulk, but for people who have a large appetite, you might want to steer clear of these unless you're trying to become a 300-pound athlete. As far as some of the other ones like mechanogrowth factor, which, by the way, WADA still does not have a test for, Olympics still do not have a test for, and it is still legal in the United States, UK, a couple other countries. Mechanogrowth factor is solid. My opinion on it hasn't changed. I think it's excellent for injury recovery and just overall recovery post-training. I would consider using it again at some point in the future, but I just haven't, and I don't know when I ever will, if I ever will, but I would at least consider it. I think it's viable. Just keep in mind the issue with the GHRPs. All right, next question. What are your thoughts on following a Bulgarian style routine for powerlifting similar to yours, but with more variations in the lift, similar to the Norwegians, but going near a training max every session? That's reasonable as long as when you get closer to comps, you're going back to your specificity of training. But if you want to do variations in lifts, I don't recommend that you pick them randomly through the week. I know Jamie Lewis does that with Chaos and Pain, but his methods are extreme, and he doesn't just do training maxes. He tends to do high volumes of singles and doubles and stuff every day on random setups to where he does a squat, a push, and a pull. It's okay to do variations as long as you're keeping progressive overload on a system like that, to where if you want to do variations of the main lift for a week or two on this lift, a week or two on that lift, I think it's perfectly acceptable as long as you know that you will need to come back to your basic competition lifts eventually. I think it can be viable to do that. So what I mean by that is, let's say for the bench press, you could come in and do bench press for 2 weeks, floor press for 2 weeks, incline for 2 weeks, come back to bench press. Yeah, it's perfectly viable on this type of system, even hitting training maxes. I think it can work very, very well as long as the variations of the lifts are close enough to the competition lift to give you good carryover, because you're still getting progression on them. All right, next question. Why is your new program suitable for beginners? I thought the training style was for intermediate only. Will you make slower gains on this than your 5x5? As far as the slower gains, it's going to depend on the person. There are some people who will thrive in the higher workload environment of the 5x5 and will make slightly better gains. There are people who flounder on the 5x5. Either they have time constraints, the slightly heavier workloads continually beat them up a little more from the heavier weight, the overall volume. They have more exercises than they personally need for their weak points, and they just get burned out in the gym. And that is a problem with about 1 in 4 people. For those 1 in 4 people, the other program is going to be vastly superior. And for people who have less time in the gym, it's just going to be superior, because the gain difference is going to be very small on these programs. The 5x5 also is there to give you a better starting strength base, and it's there to cover all possible weak points so that you can't develop any, whereas in the other lets you kind of fine tune it and find your own weak points. So you've got to be a little smarter with the newer routine, because you have to pick your own isolation movements to work on your weak points. And if you get that wrong, you're going to be imbalanced. The 5x5, it's handled for you, but you're doing a bunch of extra work. But as far as the total hypertrophy between the two, it's going to be very negligible for most people. The difference between the two is just that one of them is focused entirely upon being more efficient with it, whereas in the 5x5 ensures that all your bases are covered, but at the expense of more time in the gym, and for about 1 in 4 people just simply not being able to handle the workloads and burning out. So it's really a trade-off, and it's going to depend on the individual and what your needs are as far as which one's going to be better. But if they both work for you well, then the difference is going to be fairly small between the two. So the 5x5, you are putting in quite a bit more work for a fairly small return, but some people are okay with that. All right, next question. I randomly experienced some bruising on 2 of my calluses, 1 on each hand, about a month ago from a powerlifting meet. Yeah, this happens They are still there and not showing any sign of going away. Each of them looks as if there's dried blood trapped inside, but they have no impact on my grip, nor do they hurt. Should I be worried about this at all? No, you shouldn't. Eventually that's going to come out, because you need to realize your calluses are completely dead skin. That is dead tissue that's been compressed. It's not alive, it's not active, and it's dry. The blood you're seeing under there is that you ripped the skin under there and it bled under the calluses, and then it coagulated and it turned hard. And so that really is dried blood. That is rock hard dried blood that is now stuck between the layers of dead skin that are growing and pushing out. And eventually it will reach the surface, because you wear that callus down and it keeps growing more callus under it and growing outward and pushing. So eventually that layer of dried blood is going to reach the surface and it's going to go away. Now, it could take a good long while, but that's what should happen, and it's nothing to be worried about, but just be aware that you did tear the underlayers of your skin under there, and that's how that blood got up under the callus. And that does happen sometimes, but it's nothing to be worried about. All right, next question, and last question of the week. What are your thoughts on elevation altitude training masks? I've seen a couple of people wearing them in my gym, and I was just curious about them. I know that many of the benefits that athletes get from sleeping at high altitude, not necessarily training at it. So would sleeping with those things on be equivalent to that? Love your informative content. Thanks. Okay, how do we put this bluntly? They are completely worthless for training. Plenty of people who have graduate degrees in sports physiology have discussed this in detail online and explained to people why they are not only useless, but they will actually hurt your endurance. They will hurt your results. They serve no benefit other than to reduce your results and cost you money. Completely useless. Now, as far as the sleeping them at night, no, they're not going to restrict your oxygen enough to do that, and it's only covering your breathing, not your full body. It's the whole shift in barometric pressure, along with the shift in oxygen, that causes you to develop a higher red blood cell count from it. You could get the same benefit from the higher altitude training through a lot of different methods, through lots of endurance training. People could get it through using drugs, anabolic steroids, testosterone, EPO. Any of those things will replicate that effect also. But I would really be leery of thinking that these masks are going to give you the same benefit sleeping that sleeping at high altitude would. I wouldn't rely on it. It sounds questionable. It sounds questionable to me at best. So it's probably not worth the time. These altitude masks are a complete waste of money. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.